What's up, you guys? It's Sir Scrub here, bringing you some more Scrub Tier Yu-Gi-Oh! And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at my Draco Monarch's deck profile. But before we get into today's video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And if you do want to see more creative videos from me, please be sure to check out the description with all the different ways you can support the channel. And while you're there, please be sure to head on over to the Coalition of Scrubs, where I have partnered with several other content creators to bring you guys amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. With all that junk out of the way, let's go ahead and jump both feet into today's video. So, starting off with our Draco package, we have 3 copies of Ignis Heat, 1 copy of Dynamite Knight, and 1 copy of Majesty's Maiden. It's a pretty compact engine just because you really don't want to tribute off your Monarch back row, but you do want to be able to see them because Ignis Heat is kind of the card that ties this whole build together because he has Monarch stats, so he interacts with all your Monarch back row, but at the same time, he's searchable with your Monarch back row, but he also is a target for tenacity, so he kind of ties the whole thing together. You really want to see him. The other two, not so much. They're good tribute summons, and they're good to keep your engine going. But outside of that, you really don't need them. Of course, Dynamite Knight is limited, and if Dynamite wasn't limited, I would probably cut Majesties altogether and just play 2 Dino, 3 Ignis. But yeah, it's really compact. You really don't need anything more than this, especially with the limitations the engine has on them. For the Monarchs, we have 2 copies of Ether. Of course, she is queen. She is what gets your big boy Erebus out onto the field. And these are actually the only Monarchs I'm playing. With the Draco engine, you have plenty of tribute summons. And you really don't want to have a whole lot of them because we are playing very limited tribute fodder. So that's why I feel like just the big bosses are the only thing that's necessary. You could play around with Caius for removal or maybe Mega Thestalos for hand rips, but I feel like these guys are just enough to keep your grind going. Now the next card, I do have proxies in here, so we're going to be playing Summon Limit as a stand-in. These are just going to be extra copies of our Ardea. Please play 3 copies of this card. Don't be like me. I have some somewhere. I just can't find them. I did a poll on Twitter, and you guys said you were okay with the proxies, so just imagine these are Ardeas. Or even better, don't even look at them because we'll be playing 2 copies of Eidos. Now, I think that I'm breaking away from the normal with only playing 2 copies of Eidos, but you really don't want to open up with it. You'd much rather summon it off of your Ardea. It's not bad if you open up with it. It's just you kind of have to have your domain in order to make it a normal summon. Whereas you'd rather summon your Ardea, summon it straight out of the deck. You want to play at least 2 so that way you can recur your engine and things like that. But these are a really great package there. Ardea is a 1 card big boy, obviously, as long as you have it in your hand. Eidos gives you extra tribute fodder and can revive your Ardea to keep your engine moving along. So yeah, they're a really great package. That's it for the monsters. Pretty straightforward lineup, nothing too deep there. And we move into the spells. So we have 2 copies of Domain, 1 copy of Diagram, 1 copy of Terraforming, and 1 copy of Set Rotation. Now, you're probably only going to use these 2 to search out your Diagram, because if we have other ways to getting into Domain, which is also why we only need 2 of it, because it is searchable. We do have, you can also search it off Pantheism, but you can also search it off Tenacity, so you only need 2 Domain, and the Terraforming and the Set Rotation act as 2nd and 3rd copies of Diagram. As far as Set Rotation is concerned, you don't mind giving Domain to your opponent because A, it can't hurt you at all, and B, if they send it to the graveyard, then it really doesn't matter because you can either recycle it or you can banish it and add it back to your hand. There's just, it's just really not that bad of a problem. You really want to be able to get into your Diagram. Diagram being limited really, really, really hurts this variant. So Set Rotation is absolutely necessary to get into said Diagram. Then we have our True Draco spells. I'm playing 2 copies of both Heritage and Disciples. I think 2 and 2 is the only ratios you really need in this deck because without seeing your other True Draco cards, these cards are absolutely dead. So like if you open a handful of Monarch cards in one of these, they're dead cards. It doesn't do you any good. Best thing you can do is set it, hope your opponent blows it up, and let you blow something else up. But that's not really a reliable strategy. So 2 and 2 is the only ratio you really need for these guys. It does make Disciples a little fragile because if one of them gets banished, you're sitting in a little bit of trouble. You're not able to cycle them infinitely. But we just kind of play around it. You kind of have to just do it, to be honest. Then we have our course, our 3 copies of Pantheism, fresh off the ban list, main draw card of the deck. Big consistency booster. Speaking of consistency booster, we have 2 copies of Tenacity. These are the 5 cards that's going to keep your deck flowing. I don't like playing 3 just because of how minimal targets we're playing. We're only playing, 7 targets in the deck, so opening up with a Tenacity, a handful of spells or traps is not that great. So you only need 2, plus it's searchable off Pantheism, and this acts as basically a second or a third and fourth copy of every Monarch card in the deck, and a fourth and fifth copy of Pantheism. So it's just a really good generic add 1 card from deck to hand. Then we have 2 copies of Return. I really like Return. It's able to search your Ignis Heat, but more than that, when you tribute summon your Dracos, because it doesn't care how you tribute summon, you just have to tribute summon. It allows you to search your Aether or your Erebus, depending on what you need in your hand. So it's a really good card. I wouldn't say it's really good. I'd say it's alright, because it does require setup for the search to go off. But if you can open Return plus Diagram, you can essentially grind through your entire monster lineup. So at that point, it's just how quickly can you draw into your back row. That's it for the Monarch spells. The last spell card that we're playing is just a one of Rhoda, just to be able to search your Adea. This essentially acts as a 4th copy of Adea. So it's really cool. You could also play 1 for 1. I just couldn't find the space for it. Then we move into the trap cards. We have 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. It's the only hand trap we play in the deck. It's just a good card all the way around. It's nice to be able to set it going first and then flip it and negate 2 things, but at the very least, it's just if you lose the die roll and you have to go second, it gives you a hand trap to play in the deck. If this is outside of your budget, then just play Effect Veiler. Especially right now with Called by the Grave at 1, Veiler is essentially the same thing. Then for the rest of our trap cards, we have 2 copies of the Monarch's Erupt. Fantastic Floodgate. Of course, this is seen play in Draco decks forever, but it is right at home in Monarchs because it is searchable. So there's also that. Then we have 2 copies of the Prime Monarch. Prime is fantastic, probably one of my favorite cards in the deck, because if you can dump one in the graveyard, it's basically infinite tribute fodder, and having one on the field basically gives you boosted grind game too, because it gives you extra draws. So as you dump your Monarch spells and traps into the graveyard, or even as they get destroyed, you can recycle them back into the deck, essentially allowing us to grind forever. Between this card and Disciples, we can put both of our engines back into the deck basically forever. Then for our 1 of traps, we have the 1 of True King's Return and the 1 of Escalation of the Monarchs. These cards essentially do the same thing, allowing us to tribute summon on our opponent's turn. Return's a little bit more restrictive because it only allows us to tribute summon Dracos, but it does have the added benefit of being an interruption in and of itself. Escalation, while it lets us tribute summon anything, it doesn't provide us any form of advantage. So it just allows us to play on our opponent's turn and move our game state along. It doesn't allow us to, by itself, interrupt our opponent. But that's all I've got for this video, you guys. If you did enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And if you do want to see more creative videos from me, please be sure to check out the description with all the different ways you can support the channel. And while you're there, please be sure to head on over to the Coalition of Scrubs, where I've partnered with several other content creators to bring you guys amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. But most importantly, don't forget, be a scrub. Peace.